Yeah, everyone, welcome to Microsoft Community Insights podcast, where we share insights to community experts to stay up to date in Microsoft. In this podcast episode, we will dive into adopting AI product development with guest Kate Catlin. Could you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks so much. My name's Kate Catlin. I'm the product manager for Copilot model release. So what models make it into your Copilot model picker, which ones we deprecate, which ones we make your fallback model, and everything else in between.
Okay. So what's a model picker? Is it just choosing a different type of model in what Copilot's been choosing? Like in Give Copilot, like a range of, and then you just pick according to like the usage, or
Exactly. Yeah. So if you're using Copilot in VS Code or Visual Studio or any other IDE, or even in github.com in our chat feature, you're able to select which model you actually want to work with. And the curation of those models happens through my team. So we make sure that literally the minute that the model is released from the provider, it's also available in your Copilot model picker.
okay. So I'm curious to know what's your day-to-day job at GitHub is. So what do you just comprise it of doing inside of picking models? Because it sounds like a cool job.
It's so fun. The first word that comes to mind is chaos. And we just have the funnest job in the industry. So essentially, we work really closely with all of the major model providers that
Yeah.
Copilot. So OpenAI's and Anthropic's and the Gemini team, et cetera. And then we work with them on which models are coming up. And once they know of a model coming up, they usually give us early access to that model for us to evaluate it and start to test it. And we run like 7 different evals on these models. So we're testing how it works in VS Code. We're testing how it works in Copilot Coding Agent. We're testing how it works in other places. And we report all of those results back to the model provider in the hopes that they can actually tweak the model training so that it works even better in our Copilot once it finally releases. And then we'll work with them as well to launch it on the day that it launches. And so, again, the minute that the major provider releases that model, you have access to it in Copilot. And then we're looking at a lot of data around like who is using the models, how are they using the models, what are the results from these models, and based off of that, we'll choose which models to deprecate and take out of your model picker as well.
Okay. So you'll be doing like lots of like testing and evaluations on the module to see if, and then provide a feedback to like Anthropic, the model provider.
Lots of evaluations, lots of talking to our revenue team about how enterprises are perceiving models, and then lots of writing product docs about how we do things better. Like, how do we deprecate better such that our Copilot users aren't caught by surprise when we take a model away? What changes can we make in the UI to make it more obvious that it's happening? What changes can we make in our docs, et cetera? So I think on any given day, I have about 12 different tasks going on, and about 40 different Slack channels that I'm jumping in and out of. It's quite the spread of activity.
Okay, so if, for example, if a model provider gave you like one module, and then if it's only good for like maybe a certain task, and then do you need to keep testing it to see how accurate it is?
Yeah, we'll start to work with them and start a conversation first to make sure that we're prompting correctly and that we've got it configured correctly for us. But then if it's only good for certain tasks, we have a decision to make. And that decision is, do we want to launch this in the model picker for everyone? Or do we want to say like, hey, this model is really only good for this specific feature and product, and only launch it in that specific feature and product? So a lot of my job also is pinging all of the different feature teams and seeing how they feel about the model. Is this right for you? What are your evals saying about this specifically, et cetera? And then so on launch day, we know exactly where we should launch the model and should not.
Okay. I know that currently there's lots of module on GitHub Copilot now. So what's one of your favorite one? Because for me, my favorite one is, I think, the OPS one, 7.4.15, because sometimes it's like it does a lot of thinking. It's quite fast to answer it. So what's some of your best model currently?
Those models are really smart. I would say, I know this is a cop-out answer, but I work
Yeah.
so closely with all of these model providers that I have learned to appreciate all of the unique strengths and weaknesses of each of the models.
Okay.
So on any
Yeah.
given day, I'm probably using a model from every major model provider, depending on the part of my day. Like there's a different model I would use for like a complete backend overhaul than there is for something like, hey, I just want a UI tweak on my little side project, and a different model again for when I'm like, take these 310 sources of information and make me a draft PowerPoint. And so it's just so dependent on the use case. And I highly encourage everyone to experiment and play, like really embrace the mindset of play with these models so that they can discover as well what works in each specific instance.
Yeah, because I can't remember if there's like a specific like a list of what module per what use case, because at the moment it's too much. You just have to test one, and then if you like it, test the rest.
Yeah, and that's why we've actually launched something called auto mode in Copilot.
Okay.
That is basically going to choose the correct model for each use case for you. We're working on it actively right now, and we're trying to make it smarter and smarter so that we really are fine-tuned on exactly which model we choose for you.
Someone were to like implement AI into fully production, they will have they have to like implement evaluation maybe in the workflows before it goes into production.
That is a starting point. Yeah, before production for sure. But then even in production, I think the best teams who are building AI apps are doing it as like this full life cycle loop. So you launch the app based on the evals that you already did. And then you look through your history of like, well, what did users actually enter in? And then you see the results that they get as well. And you're combing through that data. I've heard of a team doing it every Friday. They get together and spend 2 hours combing through every single input and output. And then from those real users' input and output, you're going to pull out really good examples of where the AI crushed it and did a great job, and also where it totally failed. And you're going to use both of those to feed them back into what you call your golden data set for evaluations. So that list of like 10 or 100 or 1,000 user inputs that you started with for your evaluations, you're going to add them to that list and make sure that there's an idealized output as well. And so then you're continuing to evaluate, you're continuing to test new models, you're continuing to test tweaks in the system prompt, on and on and on, until you have something really ideal. And if you want to get super fancy, there are also teams that are adding like a thumbs up or a thumbs down into their production AI products. And so they're not even manually doing that. It's just like an automated feedback loop of like, oh, this answer was good, this answer was bad, and then you can tweak your user or your system prompts based off of that to continue making the product better in a totally automated way.
Okay. You mean like having the like emoji on PR or something, or you have it like in a GitHub workflow?
Oh, this is kind of separate from a GitHub workflow.
Oh, okay.
This is more so stuff people are tying together to create AI products out in the wild. There are some really, really cool tools available through Microsoft Foundry to do some of this. And so I would highly encourage folks to check out the Microsoft Foundry tooling to assist with creating AI-powered apps.
Okay. So, in your experience from working at GitHub, where do you see teams that mostly get stuck up, like in startup when implementing AI? Is it just the beginner phase, or is it just they have difficulty moving to different like production?
Again, like using Copilot to write software, or like to create AI production apps.
Okay, let me rephrase it. So, where do you see teams like begin the AI journey? So, whether it's like prototyping, whether it's just lots of evaluations, like you mentioned.
So, if a team is building a journey, or if a team is just starting out with building their first ever AI powered product, I find a lot of people start with just being a bit lost. There's a lot of overwhelm, there's a lot of like confusion, and there's a lot of like, well, where do I even get started? And like, what's a good model to use? And my friend said to use this OpenAI model, but I don't know. And what's a RAG file, etc. So I think that is like sort of the starting point. And then they typically throw something together because, I mean, you can even ask Copilot at this point to create you an AI powered app and it'll just wire it all up for you. All you have to do is put in your API key for your GitHub Models API or your Microsoft Azure API or your OpenAI API, like whatever your API key happens to be. And it can wire up that first draft. And then once people have that first draft, they're like, I'm good. And they ship it out to the internet and they think it's fine. And then over time, they realize like, oh my God, this AI isn't just a tool as part of my project. If I've deployed this AI to be something customer facing, it is the product. It has to be good because it is the product. And that's when they come back and they start to say like, wait, what was that evals thing that someone told me about at one point? And that's when they'll start to explore evaluations tooling. But it's typically not until something goes wrong. So we're trying to do a lot of education and be like, what if you brought evals sooner into the process so that you were evaluating things before you shipped them to the internet? And I think that is hopefully where we're seeing the industry go at this point.
Yeah, because I think for me, I often see like people getting like still in the POC phase and having difficulty like trusting AI in production environment. Whether it's like any like AI, whether it's creating an application with like Copilot or Foundry, they're trying to like make sure it's 100% even like you work in the public sector, financial sector. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because unless they know that it's 100% trustworthy, but then that's when you need a lot of like evaluation, security, boundary, guardrail.
Yeah. I've also seen some bigger teams start with like only allowing the AI to have a certain format of output. Like, maybe you have some kind of chat app that your sales team talks to when they're on a call and it like reminds them of what they said last time or something. And so the AI will only spit out information in a certain format, or you can only ask it certain questions or prompts. And that's another way to help people get more comfortable with like a starting point because, there is risk with AI that it will go off the rails and return something that you weren't expecting. And so, you can build in formats and specific outputs to your AI outputs if you would like to, and if it makes the team feel more safe.
Is there what kind of like use cases do you often see when for companies they are adopting AI or anything really like Copilot?
I think the most important use case of any company adopting AI right now is using AI for actual code generation. So rather than creating an AI powered app, it's like how do we power our developers to work faster with AI? And that is blowing people away. I think that I have seen, of course, here at GitHub, where we're obsessed with AI, everyone is using AI and everyone's work lives are different than they were even 2 years ago, which is incredible. But even with my software developer friends across the industry, they're now saying like, of course we're all using AI. Of course we're doing it. And so I think that is the biggest adoption and that a company can push is like helping their software developers use AI better to build all of their products. And I can speak more about some of the hangups and problems with that if you're interested.
Yeah. So that would probably touch into the next point, like the challenges. Some of them, like you see, like companies doing with AI, implementing AI.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge with enterprises who want their software developers to use more AI really comes down to model access. A lot of these large enterprises have very long review cycles to give their developers access to the newest models. And for these large institutions that are critically important to my day-to-day life, I absolutely do not want them getting hacked. And so I'm very glad that they have these extensive responsible AI review processes. Let's not take that away entirely, but we do need them to speed it up a little bit because the models that we have today are a different world than the models that we had 6 months ago, even 1 month ago. They've improved. Like at this point, we're releasing a new model every single week. So like, if they keep getting better and better and you're still using a model from 2023, like, of course, you don't think it's going well. And so they're not getting the results that they wanted to see from AI. And so I think that is like the biggest blocker that we have with these large enterprises is like, we need to get you using a more modern model. That's a funny thing to say fast, modern model. But it's just a different world and it's a different level of results that they're going to see.
So you're saying that someone can't just keep using audio, the audio module for them,
Correct.
because they won't know which one to use, so they will just have to keep using it, because I know it's quite cheaper, like it's cheaper token to consume, like different like Sonic, Opus and stuff. That's why.
It really depends on the model that you choose. Like a lot of the more modern models, they'll release the base model, right? Like
Yeah.
your, GPT 5.2 or whatever we're on now. And then they'll also release like a mini version of it or a nano version of it, or like a low thinking version of it, or like depending on which model brand you're talking about, they have different words and different ways that you can change the outputs. But there are still a lot of models that are smarter than they used to be, and are still lower token than the older models. So I just highly encourage folks to get on the most recent model they possibly can. And I know the pushback is going to be like, but Kate, I already built a product with, a model from 2 years ago. Don't make me change it. But that's why you need evaluations so that you can truly see that changing the model won't break your product or will even improve the results from your product.
But I would think the challenges is like keeping up to date on the latest model, because every week a new model release, but you won't know which one to try, which one to use, because we don't know whether it's good for certain use cases and stuff.
Yep, that's the biggest problem. And I talked to a startup at one point that, every single week was running every single new model through their evaluations pipeline and saying like, here's what we're using right now. Here's the new model outputs. And then they're like manually reviewing, in their case, which one is better. But you can also set up quantitative evaluations to just give you a score of like, oh, this model performed better objectively and quantitatively versus the model that I was using last week.
Okay, so
You're
it's
going
just like
to on this podcast. All I say is evals. All I say is evaluation.
yeah, because it's important in a way to test it. Even for any AI development, you still need a lot of evaluations.
Yeah,
Well.
exactly. Or
Okay,
if
so this.
you to write your code, then trust GitHub Copilot and our auto mode. I think that's the way to go. If all you're using AI for is your code generation.
Yeah, because I think it's similar to Foundry Model Picker. It's very similar to the audio one, because you use it generated per different. You just choose the right model for you, and then when a new model come out, you just change it, edit it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so how is there any advice for like new starters that want to like implement AI or Copilot or get started to the journey in when developing AI solution?
Yeah, I would say Foundry and Copilot are both really great places to start. Foundry has a whole AI agent builder now that it can help you out with that is so powerful. And it'll even write the prompt for you if you wanted to. You can enter in a sample prompt, and then there's like a special button that is like, make this prompt better. And you describe how you want it to be better, and it'll prove the prompt for you. So look into the Foundry AI toolkit for generating your first ever AI agents. And then on the GitHub side, trust Copilot. So if you are developing software for Copilot or with Copilot, you're gonna want to like trust our auto mode, trust our default models, because we have done a ton of testing on which models work best and which models tend to lead to like highest rates of code actually being saved. And so the more you can use our defaults and our suggestions, the better luck you're going to have on your actual results.
Yeah. I remember one time I was using the coding agent, but you can't really tell which model it's actually using behind this, like at the front. You can't see which model it's using.
Oh,
I think
in the AI
no,
tool?
no. The GitHub one, on the GitHub repo,
Oh.
you turn on coding agent and you get to review code. And once it does the code, you can't see which model is actually using it, whether it's a newest model or whether it's just 4.1 or so.
Oh yeah. Okay. So you're talking about the workflow where you like create an issue and you describe
Yeah,
the whole issue.
yeah.
Yeah. And then you can assign, for those who don't know, you can assign an entire GitHub issue now to Copilot to take care of from start to end in like a truly agentic development workflow. I love this feature. I use it all the time. I was just using it last weekend and sending feedback to the PM who owns it, who is absolutely brilliant. And so I think I think that, well, I happen to know that they've done really, really extensive testing on which model they use for that as well. And so trust, they're using
Trust
the
the
best model.
process. Yes, trust the process.
Most evaluated and best model ever for
Okay.
that use case, and it does do a fantastic job.
But I guess if someone have lots of code like in Python or C to go through or get Copilot to do, it may take a while, but we don't know whether it's actually doing a thinking model or we're doing a different kind of model that's behind the scene. So we just have to trust the process that's happening.
I promise you, we have entire teams devoted to just running evaluations on how the models work all day long.
Okay. So as this episode is coming to an end, I would like to ask you, what do you normally do in your spare time, Kate?
Oh, at the moment, I've been really having a lot of fun with like mini game development. So just making like silly little games. And I had one go, well, it like trended on the front page of Hacker News, which is the most success I've had yet. So I was really excited about that. And then last weekend, I was just making new iterations.
You've been playing with making games with GitHub SDK? Or
exactly, with GitHub Copilot, yes. So I am a code bootcamp grad, but these days I mostly just vibe code. And I flatter myself that I still understand every single line of code. But, you know, I trust the process. And I do a ton of vibe coding. So I have a lot of fun with
that. Yeah, that's good. Because I remember, like, for example, the terms vibe coding, it could be like, it's like you create something, you implement AI with it. When I was having a discussion with someone, like, is vibe coding production code? So you wouldn't vibe code production, but it's just.
I think there's different levels to it. The engineers that I see operating at the top levels, and there's so many engineers I love. There's so many engineers I love at every level. But the engineers that I see operating at the very, very top now kind of have a workflow where they tend to have like multiple different Git branches going at the same time. And they're kind of like kicking the AI in each one of those branches towards different feature changes and tasks. However, you are still responsible for being the tastemaker of your code, right? So you can call it vibe coding if like you just merge it without reviewing, but the best developers are not doing that. They're like letting the AI do its thing, and then they're combing through the code and being like, okay, I like this, I like this, I like this. This was excessive. Get rid of that. And then they'll merge it. So they're still tripling or quadrupling the amount of work that they're able to do at once, but they're still kind of more responsible for having that systems thinking mindset and making sure that all of the code is good before they're sending it in and merging it. So I think vibe coding has gotten a bit of a bad name because most people are not just merging without thinking about it.
Yeah, because you still need to review. You still need a human in the loop. Then actually, like an agent, a copilot does everything straightforward. Like just raise a PR to like merge a PR, everything to production. So that's why I kind of asked the question about that.
Yeah, I'm really glad you followed up on that. Like, even when you're using the magical powers of Copilot Coding Agent and having it tackle an entire issue from start to finish, like, you still are responsible for, you know, bringing that, the PR that it creates down locally and, like, deploying the app and testing it locally and making sure everything still works.
Yeah, so there will always be a human in the loop anyway. So no matter what kind of AI you're using, implementing, there will always be, like, whether it's reviewing PR, whether it's like approving something, you still need that.
I completely agree with that. You will always need a human to review all of this code.
Okay, so thanks a lot for joining this episode, Kate. So one last other thing is, are you going to any events? And so
Still determining my event schedule for 2026. No exciting conferences to report yet, but hope to get out there and meet a lot of our users and get some more feedback.
For coming on. Bye.